Good afternoon, everybody. This is Justin Falk here, CEO and co-founder of Talentfine. And today I'm very privileged to be joined by Paul Lyons, arguably one of Australia's most experienced recruitment leaders. As I'm sure you all know, times like this that we're going through call for a lot of mental toughness, especially for those in the recruitment space who are certainly feeling these changes quite a bit. So this is certainly an area that Paul has had a lot of experience in and continues to coach and do so with a lot of executives around their mental toughness as well. So Paul, thank you very much for joining us. For those who haven't had the privilege of meeting you just yet, could you give us a little bit of a background around your time in recruitment?
Wow, okay. I'll probably just obviously give you the brief version. So recruitment's my background. I started life as a chartered accountant, but not a very good one. So moved into then recruiting accountants for Michael Page, who then were a small business in the UK. This was the early 80s. And then got an opportunity to come to Australia and was lucky enough to be appointed MD of Michael Page out here. Really, really great time over the late 80s and through the 90s with a really strong team, and built the business through Australia and Asia Pacific, particularly Hong Kong and Singapore. And then decided with Nick Waterworth to start our own business called Ambition. So I was with Ambition from '99 when we started, just two of us in a serviced office, and built the business. It's an Essex listed business, and again built it through Australia and Asia and the UK. And at the heights we had, as we did with Page, about 250 people, really recruiting in white collar disciplines mainly. So essentially technology and finance. And during that time, as a recruitment leader, I had 6 or 7 downturns or recessions or crises that were affecting the business, that were affecting our growth. So I've had some experience of downturns, but COVID-19 is probably the biggest one that I've seen as a leader or advisor. And really that's what I've been the last 5 or 6 years. So I've been a recruitment, I left Ambition in 2013, and I've been a recruitment advisor since then, and also an advisor on mindset and mental toughness. So I think the two go together well, and certainly that I use them together. So that's the brief insight, Justin. Thanks very much for the opportunity on that.
No, any time, Paul. Thank you. And so, like you mentioned, your time at Michael Page and Ambition, you have seen a few of these downturns. So, what's so unique, and why is this COVID-19 one going to be so different to the previous ones?
Yeah, I think it's just its size and its magnitude. So it's affected and probably everyone in the world to some degree or another. So it's very personal to each of us. It's very local, but it's global as well, which is unlike all of the or many of the previous downturns. And also it's obviously medical, so it's a pandemic, but that's flowed very quickly into an economic crisis, and then into sort of society crisis as well. So I think it's just the magnitude, and I think it's been very overwhelming for a lot of people. And so we've talked in the past. Go on.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say that overwhelming effect, is a lot of that because of. Do you see that as because of the medical aspect of this, and that it can affect anyone?
I think because normally when we're anybody, but particularly let's talk about recruitment leaders. When we're in a normal daily situation, in our conscious brain, we're making decisions, and we're trying to make the best decisions we can. And so our conscious brain is interpreting, analysing, compiling information to make the decisions. And generally we can do that with 5 or 6 things at once. But then once you get some additional challenges, and you've got to think about 10 things at once, then you start to feel under stress and pressure, because you've got things in your brain to think about to make effective decisions. And sometimes your brain becomes a little bit cloudy, you rush to see they're not as good as they could be. Now, the challenge with COVID is it's not that you've got 10 things to think about, you've got 20 or 30 things to think about, because it's affecting everyone around you. And particularly in the early stages of COVID, we were, each of us, coming across situations that we'd never dealt with before. So we didn't have any reference points or any prior experience. So we were having to make decisions on the basis of limited information. So I think that's for lots of people that, wow, I'm over my head here, because literally there's too much to think about and there's too much stress going on. So I think that's the issue with COVID, is that it's affected everybody in some shape or form, and therefore there's been that huge multiplier effect. And you probably only got to think about working from home having a multiplier, because if you're at home with your family and your partner's also working from home and you're trying to homeschool children, then that's a logistical nightmare. So that's really your brain goes into overload. You try to work and parent and all those things at once. Or alternatively, you might be a single person living at home in isolation, and that also gives some people some really critical challenges, because you're the only person you talk to is yourself, and so that can be an issue as well. So the working from home was just a perfect example of how COVID-19 was affecting everyone in different ways.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why COVID-19's been all pervasive and affected people. And the other thing to mention probably is that we all experience COVID-19 in a different way. So there's a phrase I really like, actually, called we're in the same storm but in different boats. And that means that we're all exposed to COVID-19, but we all experience it in a different way, because we have a unique mindset. Everybody has a unique mental profile, and therefore we have different mental reactions to whatever's going on. So, and again, working from home is a really good example. So you and I might react to that in a different way. We may have different challenges to working from home. So that gives each of us our separate challenges. But if we were colleagues in an office, then we both would need to be very aware of that, because we both would react differently to perhaps the same event. So that individuality about our mental profile is also a critical part, I think, of how society is reacting to COVID-19 and why it's such a big issue.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, great. Excellent, Paul. Thank you for your response around that. Now, for those of you who were enjoying seeing the light shining off the top of my head, I have had to pause my video just for the signal, but I'll let Paul entertain you. So to carry on going, Paul, so you talk a lot around mental toughness for recruitment leaders. So just love to get your kind of thoughts on why is that toughness so important for that sector in particular?
I think it's obviously important for everyone. For recruitment leaders, as we know, you've got so many things to think about. So I talked just previously about perhaps being able to process with pressure 5 or 6 things at once. But at the best of times, but certainly in these times, a recruitment leader has got many more than that going on at any one time. So you've got to think about yourself, leader, and how you're reacting to issues or situations coming up. You've then got to think about all of your team, and then you've got to think about your business as well. So you've got a lot to think about as a recruitment leader, and therefore you need a mindset that is pretty strong. And I think there are 3 elements that I would focus on and just talk about why they're important. So I think you need to be mindful. You've got to be able to clear head. You've got to be able to be very aware of who you are as a leader and how you react in different situations. So that mindfulness is really important as a leader. And then mental toughness is just resilience and confidence fused together. So those are two mindsets that if you look at, the resilient mindset, really important, because as a recruitment leader, you're under fire, really. You're getting lots of situations coming your way. You're going to have to make good decisions and quick decisions often, and you've got to remain calm. You've got to be resolute. You've got a good plan. You've got to keep reasonably structured in what you do. So that involves being resilient. You've got to be able to manage emotions. You've got to be able to keep what you're doing pretty tight. So that's resilience. That's really the ability to do resistance or bounce from setbacks or problems. So that resilient mindset, absolutely crucial in recruitment, just to keep the show on the road. And then we're as recruiters, we're all about positivity and being able to spot and seize opportunities. That's why we do what we do. And that's also a really important part of the mindset of a recruitment leader. You've got to be able to be resolute, but also opportunistic as well, and resourceful. And so if you can spot and seize an opportunity, you go for it and you make it happen. So I'd say that's the mindset for recruitment leader, and it's important because each one of those things will give you something different, but put together, they give you a mindset that ensures you're well equipped to make the best decisions you can.
Yeah, okay, great. And what I'm certainly finding in some of the conversations I'm having as well is that resilience aspect is so much harder at the current time when no one understands the timeframes, when you don't know, is this going to be another 2 months of a downturn where things are going to be tough, or is it 12 months, is it 18 months? Any kind of tips or suggestions to help the likes of myself who are not quite sure of when the end is in sight? Yes, I think there's a phrase that the US military developed about 30 years ago called VUCA. VUCA is an acronym, and it stands for the conditions that they were facing at the time, which were volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And they describe COVID-19 really well. And I think as individuals, what we're trying to do is to counteract the VUCA characteristics that COVID-19 have got. So what we're trying to do is to ensure that we achieve some consistency, we achieve some certainty, we achieve some simplicity that comes out of that complexity and ambiguity. So you're really looking to get some structure into what you do. I think the things to talk about be some self-analysis, being very self-aware as to who you are as a leader, how you react under pressure, just being very self-aware, and that will help you then be able to understand when stressful situations are coming, how you are likely to react, and then hopefully over time you can learn to respond in the way that you want to respond. So that self-awareness is important. And then I think, again, to try and counteract this sort of uncertainty and volatility is just having a plan that you believe in, a plan and a process and some structure that you believe in. And then keep working to that plan. Every day, keep moving forwards. And it doesn't matter, well, it obviously matters, but it's irrelevant in one sense, whether it's 2 weeks, 2 months, or 2 years. Every day is a separate day, and really it's about staying resilient. Is about keeping your plan moving forwards every day. So if it's been a bad day,
you just accept that, but you do everything you do just to make some sort of progress in the day, and then hopefully tomorrow is a better day. So that resilient mindset is all about structure. It's a process. It's making sure you get some sort of momentum, and what that does is just give you some psychological comfort that you've got some protection, some armor from what's going on in terms of, you know, all the situations that you've got to deal with and all the uncertainty that you've got to deal with. And then in terms of positivity, which is obviously important as well, in terms of staying positive, staying confident, day after day, week after week, that's less of a process, but more of a mindset. So that's really teaching yourself to be in a mindset that where there are problems, there are always opportunities. So one of the techniques there might be just in that for every problem that you see, you try and match it with an opportunity. So if you have a situation and you see that's going to give me 4 or 5 real problems, that you try and work to say, but what are the opportunities out of this? Those are the problems, and I can identify them, but there must be some opportunities that I can think of. And by doing that, you may still have some problems, some serious problems to handle. But what you're doing from a mindset perspective is just getting a broader mindset. You're thinking in a more resourceful way. And that often lightens the load, because sometimes you do find an opportunity that can counteract the negativity. And then the other side is just staying as positive as you can. So that's really teaching yourself to be glass half full, and being able to look for ways to replenish your confidence. So that might be just a case of practicing what you do well, day after day after day, so that you feel competent and confident every day. It may be going back to the source for your confidence. So thinking about, remember when I was, what was the situation, and try and replicate that. Or I must admit, this is one that I used to use at an ambition, which was fake it before you make it. So I used to walk the floors quite a bit to talk to people and understand how people were going in their day-to-day work. And I really didn't enjoy that, because I was in the spotlight, I guess. So I used to have to fake it before I made it. So I'd have to find a quiet moment and really get in the mindset. Although I wasn't feeling positive and confident, I needed to do so. And so that's just giving yourself a bit of a talking to, making yourself as positive as you can.
Yeah, great.
And what I found the other day was one tip from a friend of mine who's also in resilience, called Pete Clark. He was talking about, be the person that your dog thinks you are. So if those of you who own a dog, you'll know that they think you're the best person in the world because you take them for a walk and food. But so they think you're a superstar. So perhaps just reflect on the fact that your dog thinks you're pretty good. So you've got some confidence, really. And that confidence is obviously so important as a recruitment leader, because it's infectious, and it's kind of what you need. You know, in many dark days, you need that positivity.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, and so much of that that positivity ties into what you were saying earlier around structure, and having that kind of structure in your life allows you to celebrate those small wins. So, you know, even when there is so much out of your control, to be able to say, actually, I got up at 5 a.m. I went for that. I did my 10,000 steps, or went for my run this morning. I, made my 10 calls to check in with the clients before 9 a.m. So suddenly you feel like you've got those small wins. It gives you that confidence, and you've got the wind in your sails to keep going for the rest of the day.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, Justin. And I think that control is so important, because if you're feeling overwhelmed and you're feeling everything's out of your control, just by taking control over something, which might be your habits and routines in the morning, it might be your early morning routine, suddenly you feel like you're back in control of your day and your destiny. And that in turn gives you confidence, because of exactly what you're saying. You've been able to make some progress. So exerting control, a really important part of that.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. And the vast majority of us been working from home. Interesting to see the latest job ad report survey that they did with all the recruitment leaders as well. Looks like there are going to be a lot that are going to continue working remotely as well. But you touched on it earlier with different personality types and how they adapt to working from home or being in the office. So do you think that it's going to help a lot of leaders when they are back in the office, they have all the team together, or how's that going to shift?
That's a really good question. So I think we're going to have experience some challenges. So I think we'll find there'll be some people who really want to get back to the office. They miss the connectivity, they miss the energy of their teammates, perhaps miss the structure that their leader perhaps gives them or the system. So they will want to go back to the office, and that's the way that they're made, that's the way that they're thinking. But equally there will be, and it might be an equal number of people, we don't know, who have really enjoyed working from home. They've actually been more productive by being at home because perhaps they're getting less interruptions. So they will be dreading going back to work in the office because they've got to get used to a commuting time, they've got to be more flexible with their family, all of those things. So I think the really interesting point is we don't know is the answer. And there will be people who are really looking forward to it. There will be people who are really not looking forward to it. And the challenge as recruitment leaders is working out, of course, who's who and how they're feeling. So it's obviously important for them to get to grips with that as soon as they can.
Yeah, that's great. And would you say, are there any ways to kind of self-assess your own, mental toughness? Like, how would someone know? Are they mentally strong enough to do this?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So you can, I think you can do this on sort of a temperature check every day, which I'll talk about in a second. Or you can really deep dive and take a psychometric measure, which will measure your mental toughness, and that will give you an in-depth view of overall whether you're mental, so which part you're tough or you're sensitive, and where you might have some opportunities for development. But the kind of rough and ready or approximate answer is, I think you just have got to ask yourself, do you feel in control of today? Do you think you've got today under control? And if you do, then you are feeling mentally tough enough. If you don't, then you've got to ask yourself the question, do I know why I don't think I'm in control of today? And if you know why you're not in control and you know how you can get back in control, then again, you're probably mentally tough enough because you are anticipating a problem that will make you feel a little bit uneasy, but you know how to deal with it. So that means, again, that you're in control. So I think it's as approximate as that, Justin, that you've just got to ask yourself, well, where am I today? And different days will bring you different thoughts and different results.
Yeah, great. No, thanks, Paul. And do you have some strategies as well that people can use to, be able to develop their own mental toughness?
Yeah, so I think it comes back to understanding a little bit about yourself. So we talked before about this being self-aware, being very conscious about who you are, and I think that's important because different factory settings, this unique mental profile. And that really comes because our brains are put together in different ways. And I call it factory settings, but the reason that you and I may think differently is because we've got different profile. So 50% of our factory settings, if you like, would come from that genetic profile. So we're born with that. But the other 50% have come from childhood and adult experiences. They come from our values and principles. They come from our creation. So there's a huge degree of discretion or variety in there. And so I think the first thing is to understand where your factory settings are. You know, are you somebody who is quite mentally tough naturally, or are you quite mentally sensitive naturally? And that's quite an important starting point to understand, because that will then affect the development you do. And then once you're aware of that, then I think you've got to, as we said before, probably just look for some structure. So that's all about your habits and routines, and just making sure that you put yourself in the best possible, with the best of making the best decisions you can today. So that might mean that you've got some good routines of exercise around your perhaps your diet. It might be the way that you structure your day, anything and everything that can help you make better decisions, but it's probably around structure. And then in terms of your confidence and your positivity, it's looking for ways that can just boost your confidence or your positivity and your feeling of being resourceful or opportunistic. And that often stems from confidence. And as we touched on before, there are various ways of doing that. So everyone can practice being mentally tough or developing mental toughness on a practical everyday basis, but a lot of it's around just making sure you've got the right habits and routines. I think that's a good starting point.
Yeah, I agree. I think everything just comes back to habits. I just finished reading James Clear, Atomic Habits. So if anyone's looking for a good book, it's fantastic.
That's a really good read, that one, Justin.
Yeah. Okay, great. And so I'd love to know as well. So, I mean, you've talked quite a lot about personal well-being. So, I mean, how do you maintain that, at an optimum level? And I would love to know as well from your experiences, at Michael Page and Ambition. Have you seen any in the workforce that people have done that you found were really strong examples as well?
Yeah, I think it's about achieving a balance, really, Justin. So I think we all sense when we're perhaps overdoing things, and as recruiters, we're self-starters, we're pretty motivated, so we tend to push ourselves hard during the day, but it's around achieving a balance and making sure that we don't feel perpetually under stress and pressure. Because if we do, then that starts to affect the way that we make decisions, because our body starts and our brain starts to react negatively to too much sustained stress. So the important thing really is just to make sure every day, and this is the tip, every day we're putting aside some time, half an hour, preferably an hour, where we're going to replenish our energy and replenish our positivity, so that every day we've got enough resources to manage the stress that we're dealing with. And everyone gets that replenishment of energy and joy in different ways. So there are obvious ones, and if I look back with my colleagues in those two organisations, exercise is a really good one. So that's a good one physically, but it's also a great one mentally. So exercise is really important. And then perhaps boring, but very important, things like sleep, the right diet. So I gave up drinking about 5-6 years ago. So I was quite a heavy drinker of wine, particularly just to help me, I thought, manage the stress. But I used to wake up feeling terrible in the mornings, and so I gave up and felt and feel a lot better and feel better able to make decisions. So drink is an important one. Technology, perhaps limiting the time that you spend with technology, which is obviously difficult for us when we're working from home, and difficult for us in recruitment as well. It's a big part of what we do. But for other people, it might be music, it might be reading a book, might be taking the dog walk. There are playing with your kids. There are lots of ways that you can feel that you're replenishing your energy. And it's different for everybody. Everybody's got a different way, and you just find the way that works for you. And try and do that every day. So make sure that you have some you time every day. So physically and mentally, that's a good way of if you can do it at the same time every day, you're kind of filling your personal wellbeing tank full of energy and full of resources to manage your stress.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a completely different man when I manage to execute on my my routine with a early wake up and not looking at the phone, drinking the water, out the door, do some exercise, and that compared to when I sit there for an hour scrolling through Instagram in the morning is I have it's chalk and cheese the day I had, and then I learned the hard way as well. It was about 18 months ago, was just trying to burn myself out and just working way too hard without actually turning off the switch, and ended up getting chronic fatigue and trying to scale a startup.
Right.
You're operating on about 20% of the energy levels that you would have on a good day. So that's a hard way to learn. I'm very kind of careful now. I make sure I have my evenings to myself. I turn my phone off after about 7 o'clock quite often, and turn it back on in the morning, and that gives me that time just to fill the cup. Yeah.
So you were a real life example then in that respect, aren't you? You've lived the dangers of working through that barrier. It sounds like now that you've got quite a strict routine about keeping that balance.
Yes, exactly. I did learn the hard way. I do feel that it took a bit from me. I feel like I'll never be back to 100% of what I had previously. So yeah, it's certainly not something good to go through. Tech's co-founder at the same time, he had lymphoma, and the doctors as well. They thought that was brought on, and stress would have been a contributing factor as well. So it really does kind of force you to realize we've got one body, we've got one mind. You need to look after that, otherwise we really can't operate at any level that we want to. So.
And definitely now, I think yours was 18 months ago, Justin, but now, we're all under pressure. So we just we do have to understand that we can go over the edge. Yours is unfortunately a good example of that. So we've got to self-regulate and learn to read the signs and look for a way every day of replenishing. So good shared experience from yourself.
Yeah,
and that's what I recommend, is just an hour a day.
Yeah, I agree. That does help massively. Okay, Paul, that's been incredibly helpful, and thank you very much for sharing your experiences as well. And I know you write a lot of fantastic content. You've been kind enough to share some of that with us as well, which we have on our blog. We'll certainly share as well your details, and I would encourage anyone else as well to reach out to you should they be keen to do any coaching or to get any more skills in their bow to be able to assist with their own mental toughness as well.
Thank you, Justin. I've really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you for the opportunity.
Absolute pleasure. Anytime. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.